This is Changeling the podcast.
Welcome to Changeling the podcast. Come for the glamour, stay for the vibes. I'm your host Josh, and with us is your other host, Puka. Say hi, Puka.
Allegedly, Puka.
So, what are we talking about today, Puka?
Well, we have a very special episode this evening. We are going to be speaking with some members of the cast of Toronto by Day, an actual play of Changeling the Dreaming, which I think has been running for 2 seasons now. Please correct me if I'm wrong, cast.
No, you are correct. We are closing on the end of our second season.
Yay! Which, for an actual play, I think is pretty impressive. I mean, I'm not an expert in the whole world of Twitch streaming and actual plays, but it seems like most of them, they go for a few episodes and then people move on to other things. So this seems to be a grand narrative kind of thing.
Somewhat. I'm kind of new to it myself, but have done a lot of digging and research because I'm that kind of stats-driven person. There's a lot of one-offs, a lot of short arcs, 3 to 4 episodes. A lot of them are planned that way so that they take your attention. They give you, it's like a TV show. They give you a maxi series or, a British series, which are only ever 6 to 8 episodes long. And there you go, and there might be another season. There are a number of games that run long play. I've seen D&D games that are advertising episode 58 or 43, and I know a number of World of Darkness vampire games that have been going on for a couple of seasons.
Hopefully not 58 and then 43, because if you're watching in that, Anyway, so cool. Well, maybe just to start, if each of you could tell us who you are and who you are in the game.
Yeah, who wants? Always the good one. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Certainly.
My name's Ev. I play Volodomir, the Mockley's extremely cowardly nocker.
And, I'm Crystal, and I play Lilly Winters, your friendly neighborhood korred, who's generally a bit frazzled about things.
And my name's Cliff. I'm the storyteller, which means I toss out the plot lines and set up the environment and let the Motley do as they will and go where they wish and see what happens.
Does it involve snacks?
And have the world react accordingly. And yeah, often it does involve snacks. I have been told by players in the past that I put certain emphasis on foods and describing foods.
You've made me cry at 3 in the morning.
Dev will complain in our comments section while we're gaming of darn it, Cliff, I can't. Do you know what time it is? I can't go out and get what you're talking about.
I know.
So yes, this might indeed have been one of those online favorite recipes where you have to get the story first.
That reminds me of kind of the masochism of watching baking shows when they're making these incredible pastries that you get to see before you in slow motion, but you can't just reach through the screen and grab them.
Oh yeah, and they have a wonderful set up kitchen, and you kind of look at your own kitchen and go, "Wait, how? I can't."
I don't have any of those.
Yeah.
Well, so how did you each get involved? I guess in Changeling in general, but then in this game in particular, if you can speak to that.
I'm half wondering if we should just pick an order and keep doing that.
We can stick with the order we just went with if that works for everybody.
Shit. Okay. Changeling's been so. I've been involved in World of Darkness for a couple years with Vampire the Masquerade, but before this specific game, I was in a Dungeons and Dragons game on Vancouver by Night, run by a different member of the storytelling team. And when that game came to an end, I was kind of approached and told, hey, a spot might be opening up on Changeling. Do you want to sit at that table? And it was just an immediate yes. I've been hearing about this for a couple years now, never had a chance to experience it before. I'm in. I want to see what this is about.
Mm.
So I'm trying to remember because, like, when I was in college, there was just a big group of my friends who were really into D&D, and we kind of dipped a bit into some of the World of Darkness campaigns, but like we didn't do a lot of it. And like you were talking about with like games that don't tend to run too long for just totally random reasons, which is having that problem of like, hey, let's play this game, and like you build characters and it's great, and then like I don't know, life happened and it
Yeah.
would just kind of fall apart. And yeah, kind of went a long while of just no opportunities to game, and then because Cliff is my partner here, my husband. So when he got dragged into some vampire games with Vancouver by Night and was having a lot of fun, and they were like, hey, Cliff, you should run a game. You should run a game. He's like, nah. And then finally he's like, all right, what if I run Changeling? And they're like, yeah, sure, let's do that. I'm like, wait a minute. Changeling, I want to play super bad. I collect, like, in my personal time, I collect a lot of just folk and fairy tales from all across, cultures and the globe and whatever. And this just totally fit into where I'm at. So
Nice.
that's kind of how I got there.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the old guy of the bunch. I started with Vampire the Masquerade LARPing back in the mid '90s, and had been playing D&D and other tabletop games and stuff, and kind of fell into the whole LARPing thing and went, wait, you mean we get to dress up and do it in real life? This is kind of cool. And when they brought out the Changeling book in the summer of '95, I jumped all over it because, well, Gaelic mythology, much like my wife, it's definitely an interest of mine. So, grabbed the copy, and I wasn't doing tabletop at the time, but over the course of the year, well before they came out with the Mind's Eye Theater rules for Changeling, we kind of made up our own rules from the tabletop game and tried them out in a couple of LARP sessions to see how they worked. And they were kind of fun. Did years of LARPing and gaming where I met our host, Vancouver by Night, the guy who runs it. I've known him for decades, and kind of dropped out of the whole gaming thing probably in the early 2000s as just I've been doing this consistently and solidly for the last 7 years, 8 years. I'm just tired of it. And Steve was known for contacting me out of the blue about twice a year and saying, you need to run a game someplace. And I would respond with, let me have a glass of wine while I consider how best to fill the moment. And then during the whole lockdown and people not getting together, we got talking, and he mentioned the whole Twitch thing, which was a brand new thing for me, and asked me if I was interested in playing Vampire the Masquerade. And for the first time in a while, I kind of felt, yeah, why not? And it's kind of doing it on Twitch is a little bit tabletop and a little bit LARPing, which is what I really like about it. Because you've got you can see the character, you can dress up if you want, you can see the facial expressions, you can see the body language, everything is there. And while we were doing this, the channel has been building and looking for content, so we had a few discussions about games. There are a ton of games that I remember from the 80s and adore, but Steve had a very good point of keeping the channel to D&D and World of Darkness, because those are what attract the viewers for the most part, and we can experiment with other games later. So I tossed out an idea of, okay, how about, I'm not big on everybody's doing vampire. I really want to do something different. How about I do Changeling? Because Wraith and Mage are Wow, hugely intensive on work, and I never really dug deep into them. And the werewolf thing is getting their V5 treatment now, so I didn't want to touch that. Changeling looks like it'll be quite a while before it gets a V5 treatment. So I thought I would toss that out to see who was interested, and surprisingly, I got a lot of interest. So we ran the first season with a one group of players, a motley. About a third of the way into the second season, real life happened, and several of the players had to leave, all for great reasons. A couple of them are going onward to do other things on their own Twitch channels, storytelling games themselves, getting involved with gaming companies. A couple of them just focused on work and school, and that was eating up their time. So rather than wrapping up the game, we just thought, life is a fluctuating thing. People come and go from different groups and friendship circles and everything. Let's just come up with a reason in the game why the motley kind of mostly changes over. So put out an advertisement for players at the table, and over the course of three episodes, I think, that we kind of switched over the players. Yeah. One here, two there, bring in a couple of new players. So at one point we were down to 4 at the table, and then we were up to 6 at the table, and it settled back in at the 5 again. And now here we are. And I adore the table. And again, I'm open to it changing if life does that down the road. But so far, I feel very, very lucky with all of the people that I've had playing the Changeling game. They have all been fantastic to storytell for.
Right on. I think it's helpful to have that kind of flexibility as well. Like just to be willing to kind of write that into the narrative is for any game, not just on Twitch. But the LARPing thing is more Josh's bailiwick. So
yes, that's actually how I got into Changeling in the first place, was LARPing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, actually, so I have questions. So what's the general storyline or premise of your chronicle?
You can do a lot with Changeling, and it's one of the things that I think has made it the hardest of the World of Darkness games to grasp onto. And I've even seen reviews that have said, White Wolf dropped the ball. They put together a rule set and didn't put together a world to go along with it. And I really disagree. It all depends on what the storyteller and the players want to do. I mean, I started out, because I've got players who weren't really sure about what's going on, I've introduced some of the rule sets slowly. It was towards the end of the first season that they finally found out about nightmare points. That was something they didn't start with. Banality is also something we haven't really stepped into yet that I'm looking at cranking up. The first 3 or 4 episodes were basically a D&D game, a quest, to give them that kind of, fantastical, romantic sort of thing. It's moved more into slice of life. It has gone through a little bit of horror. It's definitely gone through a Scooby Gang kind of period. And we might be shaping up a new Scooby Gang. We'll see. They seem to have a different approach to things than the first Motley did. So the game is kind of bounced around everywhere. They are focused on Toronto, and they're kind of the go-to group for the Changeling court and the greater Changeling community to say, there's a problem over here. Oh, look, you found it? Good, now fix it.
Okay. So I have to ask, because I actually started Changeling with LARPing while living in Toronto. So what about, why Toronto?
We probably know people in common there.
Yes. I imagine so.
Yeah, I have lived in Toronto on and off. I'm a Highway 416 person. I lived in Ottawa or Toronto. I bounce back and forth.
Yeah, I moved from Toronto to Ottawa about 22 years ago.
Oh, okay. I do the shift about
a lot of people in common, no doubt.
Yeah, probably. I do the shift about every decade. I do about 2 years in one spot, and then I move back to the other side of the province. I think I'm settling in Ottawa this time. Toronto for a couple of reasons. One, I know Toronto really well. It's a huge cosmopolitan city. There's a lot more opportunity to play with things there than there would be in another Ontario city like Ottawa, which has a very small downtown core. Yeah, you can't really. I wanted to bring a very vibrant world into it that had all of the other supernatural races, and Changeling goes into the Hussein and the Nunnehay and all of that, and you can do that in Toronto. Ottawa would put them a little kind of tight in each other's faces. And one of the players from the first Motley was from Toronto, so she was a bit of the influence on, if we did Toronto, I could relive. Could we have this bakery and that dance club and all of this stuff back again? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll put back there for you. And
did you make Savage Garden still around in a freehold? Is that
no
freehold or something?
No. I have allowed Savage Garden to go its way, but everything's happening out at the dance cave.
Okay.
So we still have, and there are a lot of current Toronto characters who are showing up. The Toronto by Day is in the Vancouver by Night world, so we do share some continuity back and forth. And both Steve and I have fun bringing up people who we know would have no issue appearing in our games as characters. One fantastic example is my brother from another mother, DJ Asaze McGregor, has appeared as a character in both and is actually a supernatural character in both. So that kind of gives Toronto people a little more of a connection and feel to what's going on. And like I said, Toronto's just bloody huge and got so much there to play with.
Awesome.
Well, also with sticking real people in as NPCs, you don't have to invent what the NPC is like. It's just, I will make it like this person. They would behave like that. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, a lot of my notes are this NPC sounds and looks like this person that I know. So a quick shorthand.
We'll have to touch base after this recording and see if we've made any of the same real world NPCs in our games too.
We can share a few too.
Because I can think of one Toronto DJ that literally lived in Ottawa that I've had in my game that would.
Oh yeah, I bet you I knew who you mean too.
Yep.
Long red hair, shirtless around midnight.
Yep. I made him an alienhood count. I thought that worked.
He has appeared in Vancouver as a regular DJ in the Vancouver by Night games.
Yes, I'm sure he would get a kick out of that.
But you also picked, because there was a while where we were on a kick of Bud Abbott and Lou Costello movies, and so they got NPC'd.
Yeah, see, that's one of the fun things about Changeling is you're only restricted really by your imagination. It's almost as good as Mage without the what is it that keeps mages in check?
Paradox.
Yeah, it's almost as good as Mage without the paradox in certain ways and certain setups. There are characters I have stolen completely from fiction that I have stolen happily from Terry Pratchett. There are some characters from the Discworld series in the game. Bud Abbott and Lou Costello are in the game. And again, the players haven't figured out what they are yet as to why they are this way. But with the Dreaming and Chimera and stuff like that, you've got so many things you can do with the game.
Absolutely. And to your point earlier about the complaint that Changeling is a rule set without a world, to that, well, on the one hand, I think that this podcast is sort of an extended disagreement with that idea. And that often I kind of think when people say that, ironically, it's just kind of a failure of imagination on their part, because it's such an open world that's so rich with so many options that you can draw in, like those and many, many others. So yeah, it's fertile ground for ideas.
And we've certainly going through a lot of books that detail the world. It's not like it's all sandbox and just make your own. It's very open. There's very a lot of things that are thrown into.
So your characters are fixers in this, or you have the role of fixers in this motley. What kind of fixing do your individual characters do? What would you say your role is within the group?
Well, I mean, for my character with the first group, definitely she was more of Lilly was more of a background kind of person. I mean, she would do, kind of research sort of things or coming up, helping come up with ideas. But with the whole group changing over and my character being the only one that's still there from the original group, it's like, well, now you're the oldest. You're kind of, we're looking to you because, like, Zev's character, I don't think had been in a motley before. I'm not sure how long his character has actually been like aware of what he is, but he seems to have a pretty good concept of his abilities and what he's capable of.
I definitely think Volodomir has been around long enough that he mostly knows how this all works.
Yeah, like I haven't.
And he's not going to admit that he doesn't.
Well, that too.
That too, but like I don't, because one of our players, her character literally just went through Chrysalis, so she is so brand sparkly new, it's not funny. And two of the other characters, they basically were alone until coming to Toronto and being part of the Motley. So they haven't had anyone to give them instruction on, hey, you're an issue, or hey, you're I'm not
Troll.
a troll, and here's what we're about, here's what we're capable of. So there's a lot of looking towards my character of, hey, Lilly, what do we do with this? And it's like, oh, no, why do you ask me?
It's good to have that role, though, because, there's that difficulty between being a player and being a character, and the character can't say, well, I remember in the book it says this,
Right.
So to have someone who's kind of the knowledgeable one is helpful.
Right. But I mean, like, so far with a number of the like, I've already forgotten how many games we played of the second season, but
11.
a lot of them, for my characters, like, okay, well, because she works at, her day job is working as a librarian. And also she has like a couple of contacts where she can get access to books that wouldn't necessarily be in like a mortal type library. But so it's like, okay, well, I'm going to do research on troll type people and issue type people, and crap, I need Slua stuff, and basically putting it as that whatever Lilly might know off the top of her head isn't necessarily going to be enough to teach someone about themselves. So, like, there's so far been a lot of that, and also kind of like, okay, well, we went to court once, and Lilly has to be out front and try and talk to, I think at the time it was a duke and a count, and go, hey, so here's what we've been up to, here's why we've been missing, here's why we had a complete or near complete switch over of people, and oh, by the way, here's this project you gave us to do that we haven't completed, and there's these other things going on, and just kind of an info dump plus please don't squish me.
No squishings. No squishing.
No squish. Please, no squish. I am small.
Well, yeah, as the korred tend to be.
Yeah. My sense of like what korred are supposed to look like is they're kind of furry all over.
And tiny.
But we kind of tweaked that a bit, and that, yeah, she is small, but because me, the player in real life, I've got big, massive curly hair, so we just played that up, and it's like, okay, in Fae form, it's like, 2/3 her body kind of thing. Just sort
that tracks.
Yeah,
there more stress she gets.
Yeah, there are a few changes I've made and allowed the players to make to the game, but I can talk about that after Zev answers the question.
Yeah,
because I'm interested to hear where he's going.
Yeah,
I mean,
we largely have been playing Rule of Cool with a lot of stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I'm playing a knocker. My role in this team of fixers is very. It's actually very traditional, I think, for knockers. I'm building stuff. I'm inventing things. I'm trying to figure out how and if I can shove enchantments into various items to help the rest of the motley. And there's kind of a detail that I didn't have when I started the character, which was how cowardly he is, which has flavored a lot of what he tries to invent, because a lot of it has turned into what can I invent to buy time for optimally myself, but hopefully everyone else, to run away from something. Standing to fight doesn't really occur to him, so he's building a lot of very distracting, explosive type things.
I wondered when demolitions were going to come into it, because it seems like they always do at some point with knockers.
Yes.
Just a little
Compulsory.
Just a bit.
It's interesting, though. Like, the cowardly bit is a nice angle, because that's something that is less common to see. Like,
it was completely unplanned. It's just had this realization that, wait a second, hang on. How do knockers survive? Checks the book. Well, they've got their inventions. And oh, hey, look, groveling.
Yeah, I guess that's a good counterpoint to just not knowing when to bite your tongue, is the other knocker aspect.
Oh, yeah, no. There's been, what, two or three times where Volodomir has mouthed off to Hunter, our troll, and ended up going, oh god, please don't squish me. At least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, or like, because like when we had the episode in court, our storyteller was like, yeah, there's a group of knockers off to one side messing with some mechanism. And like conveniently your character was like, hey, I want to go run over there. But it was also like, oh good, I don't have to play like extra, I don't know, offensive or defensive when I'm in front of the Duke.
Yeah, it's the nice thing about being a knocker is that, yes, I get to play a character that is wildly socially inept, just wildly inappropriate. I've probably been the meanest out of the motley to the most new and unprepared member of said motley, but throw something shiny and vaguely mechanical, and all that goes away because you don't have to deal with him for a while.
What? I don't mean to see, because I feel bad because I'm like, I don't want to be me, like I'm saying that about you, like that's not about you, that's like just my character and your character. Like I don't know if I needed to say that.
I mean, I know Volodomir's a
I don't want you
dick.
to feel bad.
I know Volodomir's a dick. I'm playing him as a dick. He is not a nice person.
Okay, no, just.
Yep. Fortunately, there are systems within the motley that keep everything level and good. And, it helps that the players recognize that it is a game and they are playing characters and no one takes anything personally between the characters. So we do vibe checks fairly regularly. It's something I really believe in, making sure that everyone at the table is having fun. We are doing this for Twitch for people to watch, but the players having fun is the first and foremost, really. So if they're not having fun, then we got to change something or stop something. So yeah, I check regularly to make sure that everyone's doing well and enjoying themselves. And we've got a Discord as well for the motley where they can chat and share memes and hang out. And I keep an eye on that to make sure that it remains light and easy and everyone gets along well. And we have systems in place if people start to have issues. They can approach me. They can approach the Vancouver by Night people, so that we can make sure we take care of our folk.
So that actually brings into what are some things that you found you have to do differently in an AP that you wouldn't have had to do or keep in mind for a tabletop or LARP or even online playing that's not recorded? Like, is there something are there any things to keep in mind for these actual plays that are also with an audience, would you say? This is both for Cliff and for the players.
Yeah, from the storyteller side, yeah. And I mean, again, I'm really old school. So when I started back in and was told, okay, here's a consent form, you have to let us know, your reds and yellows. And I went, what? Yeah, if you have any triggering issues. And I went, dude, I LARPed in the 90s. Throw shit at me and we'll see what happens. But I very much understand, and I really support the use of the consent forms, the red and yellow cards. the vibe checks, the players stopping and checking, because back in the mid '90s, mental health was on the radar, but it wasn't really talked about very much.
Oh yeah, that's definitely also now in LARP. Believe me, today,
Yeah.
or should be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we take care. We start every game with a disclaimer to let people know that it is a mature game. There may be situations, and, if it is at all triggering, step back. You can watch it later when you're prepared on YouTube, or you can skip to the next game or whatever. We don't want people to force themselves through something, an experience they don't enjoy just because they want to catch up with things. And it goes the same for the players. I adore my players like extended family. I have to very carefully tread the horror lines because I don't want it to get to the point where the players actually have a problem with it. But at the same time, the world of, the changelings can be a pretty horrific place to live and exist. So I make sure that at the start of every game, I'm posting the red and yellow flags in the in-game chat so that we can keep them in mind. I go through them as well myself just to make sure that, right, okay, I know what people are not going to enjoy, and we will work at not having this in here. For example, with the first motley, there was a situation with the felinoids, which are kind of cross a cat and a centipede, and you've got an idea.
Ew.
I know with the current motley, because of the changeover in people and the changeover in red and yellows, I can't do that now. It would not be appreciated by at least one, probably a couple of the players. So it's okay. You've got to cope with that and move on to different things.
I mean, I didn't like them, but you've also managed to describe things, but also not over describe. So it's like, okay, you get kind of the squick factor, but you're able to move off of it quickly enough that it's not like hanging out, taking up brain space.
Thank you. I try.
And especially on Twitch, I mean, I've seen people sort of make a point of putting in the chat, "Oh, I'm tapping out because this is coming up, and I can't be around that. I don't want to watch that." So
Yes.
Having that audience kind of reacting in real time and having to divide at least some of your attention to that.
Oh yeah.
Aspect to actual plays that you wouldn't get if it were a private table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's one of our kind of sister channels, that we do a lot with, Martlet Games, has run 10 Candles games, which can be pretty horrific. And I just, as much as I love them, I'd like to support them. I can't watch them. They're just not my gig. So, I smile, and I'll either turn my computer on and then mute the channel and turn off the screen so that I'm kind of there in spirit, or I'll just, unfortunately just not show up. And I can completely understand that. There are people for whom there are a lot of different things that are traumatic. I would not have anyone push themselves through this, and I won't inflict that on my players. So yeah, compared to 25 years ago, the world of gaming has changed a lot. And with Twitch, you have to consider your audience as well. As if I was just doing this in my living room with 5 great players, I'd check with them to see what they were finding kind of strange or squicky or whatever. But I wouldn't be worried about Joe Public sliding into the channel going, "This is great," and wait, you're doing what?
From the player's side, I know that when I've been in streaming games before, I find myself becoming kind of hyper conscious of what I'm doing with my body, kind of like what Cliff was saying earlier about body language. So in your experience, either that or any other sort of aspect, do you find actual plays kind of change the way you're actually role-playing?
Well, I mean, I find being able to see my fellow players very helpful because it means that you end up kind of feeding off of each other a bit like improv theater kind of thing. And that's, I don't know, I somewhat think that makes kind of a better story. Or even just like watching the other players reacting to what else is happening in game. Zev is great for this, actually.
Yes, watching Zev's facial expressions is just wonderful.
I
mean, this podcast is being recorded audio only, but I am envisioning your face right now.
Yeah.
Whatever you're envisioning is probably not far off. I'm not unfamiliar with being on camera and like like Crystal said, I really like being able to see the people I'm interacting with. I think it helps with the role play. But it occurred to me last week or the week before when I was watching, and you know what? It was when we were it was towards the end of the conversation with Auntie. I was watching the episode as it aired, and I saw my freak out, and I saw how just the way I was reacting, and my brain went, "I'm acting like Travis Willingham."
Who is that?
He's one of the players from Critical Role,
Oh, okay.
and he is a massive baby.
Oh.
So Matt will start describing a ghost, anything ghost or zombie like, and Travis loses his shit, which is hilarious because he's like a 6 foot plus, 200 plus pound jock, losing his shit.
Well, that's perfectly fine.
And no, I love it. It makes me laugh every time, but I'm realizing that I'm that person in our group.
Dude, this past game, when Anthony Hinode showed up at Rosalind's
out of my chair.
Your face was amazing.
I almost fell out of my chair.
That was shit. That was worth every moment.
Like, I will be in my little box silently screaming and flapping my arms and like hiding my face or jumping in circles. Like, just, yeah, no.
Well, it's good to have that sort of self-awareness.
Yeah, but I mean, from my perspective, I think it's wonderful to be able to just like see that sort of honest reaction to things. Like, I mean, I don't know how you necessarily feel about it, but like,
I mean, I love doing it. I'm like, internally, as I'm freaking out, I'm laughing because my brain is going, "Oh, this is great." But I also feel like if I wasn't on camera,
yeah,
I don't feel like I'd feel comfortable reacting that way, because if the people I'm playing with can't see me, because I'm not thinking about the audience. I'm never thinking about the audience, to be honest. I'm thinking about you guys. If I don't have my friends, my table, seeing me freak out, I'm just going to feel silly. I'm going to feel kind of stupid.
Yeah, like the sort of.
So it's permissive.
Yeah.
The live play, the stream, the camera format really is kind of it feels very permissive. It's like, it's okay. We want to see that. We want to see you actually having feelings.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of also a way to like. I feel like sometimes our reactions on the camera end up helping to draw in the people that are watching, because then they can kind of identify with that or go, yeah, that's exactly what I was feeling or thinking, and it like kind of makes it a bit more interactive, even though like because we pre-record, so like we can hang out in the chat and respond, but it's not in the moment.
I don't think I knew that you pre-recorded, actually. So.
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
we do. Vancouver by Night tends to pre-record its World of Darkness stuff and do the D&D as live play. And while I like the idea of doing live play, because then you can have players interact and impact the story. Two things. One, it feels a little bit like shilling, because it's like, if you spend $1 to buy 20 or 100 bits for us, then you can nudge the dice one way or the other. And the second thing is, I got my hands full dealing with this motley. I don't want to have to be looking at the chat as well and responding to people in the chat. I have done a live play, and it is a good bit of juggling.
Yeah,
I think that would be a lot more to pay attention to. Which, I mean, while I think there are good things about playing while on camera, for me, dealing with my neurological stuff, it can be kind of challenging just because of how much there is to pay attention to. My brain kind of craps out at random awkward moments, and then I'm like, okay, what happened? What do I need to roll to try and beat this? Like, I'm constantly asking questions like that and then feeling awkward. And I don't know if it's like if that's just me, feeling like that. It might be.
I don't think so. I think that's the primary reason why having moderators, for example, on Twitch is such a boon, because there's only so many directions you can divide your attention in the middle of that kind of setting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not pre-recording is great. I'm not judging or anything. I just wasn't aware.
I mean, a lot of that's just because of getting everybody together at one set
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Okay, so.
Yeah, and I'm finding out I'm different to a lot of other storytellers and dungeon masters in that if one of my players has life happen, we'll postpone the game by a week. I know a lot of games that will be okay if one person can't make it, we'll continue on. We'll give them a reason for their character to not be there today. But I like the Motley work, and the Motley seems to work really well together. I don't like separating them out. And periodically, life happens. We've had exams, we've had illness, we've had car accidents, and it's, you know what, we'll skip the night. Everyone take a break, grab a breath, and we'll come back next week. I know that might kind of cause issues with followers because it's not a regular every week thing, but my first focus is the health, both mental and physical, of my players. So if a break is needed because somebody's got a rough exam that they just did or one coming up the next day, then we'll take the break.
I did slightly want to skip back to the when we're talking about the consent stuff of just that, because definitely back when I was in college or whatever, we didn't have any forums or even necessarily a discussion about what was okay or not. And it definitely caused, problems of, somebody got really into telling, some kind of dark and twisted sort of story, and like some people being like, oh my God, I am literally going to have nightmares now. Thanks. I don't know if I'm going to play anymore.
yeah.
So, from my perspective, I just find it very helpful and just makes the whole environment a lot more relaxed, so you don't have the stress of, oh no, what am I going to be quasi forced to deal with?
Yeah.
Just because the storyteller wants to go a certain direction. So.
Well, yeah, I can definitely think of a few moments back before I was exposed to those type of tools where I really wish I had it when running games too. Like, there's just a few things where you're like, oh, that did not go well.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was. Oh no.
Something that I often tell players when I'm running a game, there's two things. One is that you can almost never anticipate how invested you're going to get in a character, whether more or less than you expect, and that also you can never plan for everything that might set you off. And there was a game I ran, I guess last year, where one of my players, who was a veteran player, had been playing the game for probably 20 years, just responded to something that I had put in the plot in a much more severe and adverse way than either of us had expected, and almost dropped out of the game over it. So we had to talk through it and everything, and they understood that it wasn't intentional on my part, and I couldn't have known that it would be something that would set them off. So you always have to be able to kind of pivot in those moments, I think. So yeah, and it can be tough to do that if it's a live stream.
Yeah. Yes, it can be.
Yeah.
Related to that, I'll segue into a question with that, which is just generally, what advice would you give someone who's looking to either start or get involved in actual play?
I'll let the players go first because I want to hear what they say.
Oh God, I don't know. I on the one hand, I feel like there's so much more that a storyteller has to juggle, but it's also really hard to nail down as a player. At least for me, like what I would tell other aspiring players: hey, you need to be aware of this. You need to think about these things.
If it helps, is there anything specific to Changeling that you might advise?
As a player who's new to Changeling, reconcile yourself with the fact that there is a lot. You are not going to memorize everything, and that is okay. Be prepared to have to double check things that you might think are really simple because difficulty is not a constant. That's a variable factor.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking. um,
There are no wrong answers.
See, because like I didn't get, like I said at the beginning, I didn't get into it because I was particularly, any good at the rule set or anything. It was literally just because of kind of the love of story. So, I mean, I'd almost suggest, I mean, yeah, certainly you can dive in as deep as you like into, the various game books or whatever, but I'd almost say just as getting straight into the mindset is to kind of try and immerse yourself in some of the media. So there's even if it's just like you pick up a stack of movies that are kind of, I mean, you want to watch like Labyrinth or Mirror Mask or just various other titles like that to get into the concept of what it might look like.
Actually, on that note, that's actually a good point. Before I got into this game, I was raised on fairy tales, on folk stories, specifically from Eastern Europe, which is why I made a Russian knocker. But when I found out about Changeling, and this game in particular, I went looking for other Changeling games. And I ended up watching Dreaming Across New York by B. Dave Walters.
Oh, yeah.
Which was so much fun and has actually become something of a bit of a ongoing cast joke in the Changeling game, because ours is, as we joke, significantly less thirsty than the
We were zero thirst.
yeah,
We're good.
with the zero thirst, high anxiety.
All right.
Yeah, no, advice to people wanting, and I get this from people because I've actually been approached by people with, I couldn't do what you do being on camera. And it's, yeah, that's cool. I probably things you do that I can't do either. The two big things are communication. The table has got to talk. And not just the storyteller and the players, but the players and the players. Because if there's no communication outside of the game, you could end up going weird directions, and everybody, you got to have a story, and the story's got to pull together at least a little bit. I mean, the Toronto by Day has got about 4 active plot points going on right now with side quests included, but there's still a direction. And the other thing is to have fun with it. You can be as serious or as unserious as you like with it, but that's up to you. Have fun with it on your level. Whether your fun is the stats and the processes, or your fun is the backgrounds and the lore, that's what we're doing stuff for. And I see some people going into Twitch to try to be the next Critical Role, or try to be the next big well-known player, or try, and it's like, don't do that. Go in to have fun. If you enrich yourself financially out of it, cool, excellent. I applaud. All the more power to you. That's not what I'm doing this for. I'm doing this to enrich people's lives with stories, and my own too, because I have a heck of a time with these guys. They're great to role play with.
And especially because I can't imagine there are many things more banal than saying, oh, this game is a failure because it's not the next Critical Role. It's like, no, just put that thought out of your head,
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah. It's never judge yourself. With something my grandfather used to say is never judge yourself compared to other people. Either they'll do better than you, and then you'll be jealous and disappointed in yourself, or they'll be worse than you, and you'll become arrogant and full of yourself. Always compare yourself to you. And if you do a little better every day, yeah, you're going in the right direction. So yeah, comparing yourself to, even, don't compare yourself to me. It used to drive me crazy when I was told that, yeah, this person wants to be you. And it's like, why? Dad, do they know what kind of hangups I have? Holy crow. Do they know what they're in for? Because I'll tell you, it's going to be expensive. I mean, I collect some very expensive toys. So, but it's, go in to have fun first. Fun first, profit later.
yeah, kind of like if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So, where do you all see as sort of the next step for this game? Again, both players and the storyteller.
Oh, again, I'm going to let the story players go first. I'm going to get my notepad so I can write down.
I don't know anything that you don't know.
That's just cheating 101. Yeah,
that's one of the big advantages and disadvantages to being married to one of the players is that I can bounce things off of her to see how they might fly because she has a player's perspective on the game. The disadvantage is there are times she has to go into the game forgetting what I said 2 days ago, what I was planning.
Well, this is an opportunity for the players to say, well, we'd like to see the game go in a direction where we all get level 5 treasures. And...
there are treasures in this game?
Yes, I haven't mentioned that yet. Funny.
Yeah,
dang it. I need shiny stuff.
I mean, from speaking as Volodomir, where I would like for it to be going is place I get to make cool things. He has some ideas, but I've already established with Cliff that those are things that are going to happen probably between this season and next season because they're not going to be quick. Nocker stuff does not happen quickly.
Well, until it breaks, that happens quickly.
It doesn't. It does not break. My inventions do not break. They function 100% perfectly.
I'm sorry. They develop in unexpected directions.
They follow 100% the specifications. It's the specifications that have a few bugs in them. And...
You can have good, cheap, or fast. You are only allowed to pick 2 out of the 3 unless it's a knocker, in which case your odds of getting any of them are a little shady.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I came into this game with the express intent and purpose of playing realistically the comedic relief. Volodomir might be a jerk, but he's also kind of the comedy character. So I'm just there to be a little silly, fiddle with things, and occasionally curse and say inappropriate things.
Excellent.
I don't know that I've got that Lilly has plans other than try to keep the group together and keep them alive through whatever our shenanigans are going to happen, because there's always going to be shenanigans.
That's a big plan right there. Just
With what you're against, keeping them alive is a big plan. Yes, and that's
yes, but because I know that Zev's character is way more concerned about what we're going to be doing next than Lilly is. Lilly is not concerned.
Yeah, Volodomir is 100% convinced that the Motley has volunteered to walk into a situation where they're going to get themselves killed. He is terrified.
Yeah, no, it's like, well, Lily's pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that what we're about to walk into will be fine. What that leads to or what happens afterwards, I don't know. But I can't think that far ahead with you guys.
Just let the knocker walk in front.
No. He will be safely ensconced behind the troll because
you've got a troll. That's the troll.
Sorry, yeah. If you have a troll. Yeah.
I mean, if he can get away with it, he'd be staying in the car, but he doesn't think anyone's going to let him pull that off.
Oh, haven't you seen any action movie or horror movie ever? You definitely don't want to stay behind in the car. That's where all the problems will hit.
That's the thing.
Truth.
Volodomir is from Russia. It's a safe bet he hasn't seen those movies.
No, but I dated a girl from Siberia at one point, and Volodomir would have seen that in real life. She liked to tell me about the time her dad, a math teacher at a university, got in his car, was driving home, stopped at a red light, and was pulled out of his car at gunpoint so they could take his car on more than one occasion.
Yeah, Volodomir's seen some stuff. It might have inspired some of his inventions, which he would love to put in the troll's car if he thought he could get away with it.
Yeah, there's that challenge.
The very first episode, the troll basically went, "You are allowed to be in my car on one condition," and kind of ended up with me making a contract to not fiddle with his car.
Yeah, you made a contract with his car.
Yeah, it's not with him. I promised the car.
Yep.
Which is a problem.
That'll never get to be broken.
Enforced by the power of the dreaming.
Yep.
Womp womp.
Yeah. Now, where the game goes will also depend on when this podcast is aired.
That's true, yes.
As of today, we have 2 more episodes in season 2. And generally, you like to end a season with, a kind of a narrative precipice, a big bad or something interesting. And one of the things that this Motley has got going for it is I'll get through part of a story arc and then I'll wonder what the heck I'm going to do next because, wow, they take it in interesting directions. So I'm not sure how it's going to end season 2 or where it's going to begin season 3, but I can tell you that there are several plot points, quests and side quests, 4 that I can think of, that are going to come home to roost. There are potentially other things as well. And one thing that I learned from storytelling years ago and have picked up from a number of really good storytellers is to have a living city as the backdrop, that even though the players are focused in one area and on one project or plot point, there are things going on in the background among the other supernaturals and among the court and everything else. So potentially, as I scribble notes to myself, they can run into anything as they go along. So that there will be hopefully no end of possible plots for them to follow and threads for them to pick at. So I'm hoping for at least a 3rd season. Most of the long-term games that I've seen on Twitch so far seem to last about 3 to 4 seasons and then dissipate or self-destruct or something. I'm hoping this continues because the Motley is a fluid thing that people can leave and go do other things, and we can bring in more members. There has been discussion as to, wrapping this Motley at some point or the game and doing something different with the same players in the Changeling universe, like perhaps a 1970s Toronto game or, something to explore other facets of it once they've gotten a good grip on the game mechanics and the lore. So who knows? Honestly, I mean, I'm a storyteller. Like I said, I toss the plot points out and the characters grab them and do things with them. I can never predict what these players are going to do, which is one of the things I love about them. So where the game will be in 6 months, hopefully wrapping up a wonderful 3rd season and looking forward to a 4th.
No more, but I just had the mental image of if you took a bucket of balls and dropped it in a pit with several raccoons and watched what happened. Bit like what we do with his plots.
Yes,
I'd pay money to see that.
I mean, to be fair, just thinking about emerging and kind of developing background plots, Volodomir's got an entire mechanical friend who, what the hell is going on with him? What is happening? That is scaring the shit out of me.
Oh, I love the big.
And that is the nice thing about the players as well, is they have all given me enough background and enough leeway as a storyteller that it's entirely possible that over the next couple of months we'll also do some kind of vignettes, one player sort of things that we'll toss up on the Vancouver by Night Patreon for the Patreon members, where it'll explore some of the background and some of what has happened before, or some of what is happening. Because I could get into Volodomir and his golem for 2 solid hours, but it would be unfair to everybody else at the table in a 3-hour game to spend 2 hours in Volodomir's dealing with the golem and his cousins Larry, Daryl, and Daryl.
Yes, we did that on purpose.
So so some of that might be coming out too. I may be during the break after the end of season 2. We're going to have a discussion about a few things with the game, where we want it to go, what we want to do with it, and if people want to do some exploration of their characters' backgrounds and digging into some fun stuff. And if they do, then heck, I'm all for it.
Well, I think we can guarantee this podcast will probably come out after the end of season 2, but possibly before season 3 begins. So.
Excellent. In that case, listeners, you can check out season 1 and 2 on the YouTube for Vancouver by Night. They are all there in nice little playlists, so you can just run through them, check out both the Motley, see what's going on, and enjoy the heck out of Tales from the Rookery.
And we'll be sure to have links to that in the show notes.
Perfect.
Yeah. So once again, this is.
So we'll start with.
Well, it's great. It's great to have you guys here. I want to say that. Have you all here. Yeah.
Great to be here.
And
yeah.
So that's once again. This is Changeling the podcast. You can find us at changelingthepodcast.com. We have a Patreon now at patreon.com/changelingthepodcast.
Oh, nice.
You can also find us on Facebook page, Changeling the Podcast, Twitter, Changeling Cast, and we have a Discord. Yeah, link to. We don't have a handy link for that, but it's on the website, changelingthepodcast.com.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, our game, besides finding Toronto by Day, Tales from the Rookery on Twitch, on Vancouver by Night's channel, you can also find us on the Vancouver by Night YouTube channel. We do have a Facebook called Toronto by Day, Tales from the Rookery. It's not a big group. It doesn't have a lot going on yet, but if it gets bigger, things will be happening. I can be found on Instagram as the Vintage GM. And we've got, all of us have got other stuff that is possibly going on or coming down the pipes because, there's always stuff in the future that'll be popping up.
The dreaming is never ending.
Exactly.
Pretty much. I'll just go quick because I do not social media. So I am mostly on this game, but if somebody wanted to inquire or invite me to other things, that's cool.
I can be found on, obviously, the Changeling game, but I can also be found on Twitter at Rookery Gaming 30K, where I talk a little bit about role-playing games, but I mostly talk about Warhammer Horus Heresy and Adeptus Titanicus, because that's what I do a lot of stuff around in terms of just lore and reading and rules.
Again, this will all be in the show notes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So once again, thanks for listening, and don't let your motley walk into certain death.
If they picked it.
Ideally avoid.
I don't know. Maybe death should be scared.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
I don't know.
As always, a very special thanks to our producers for this episode, our boon companions for slouching down the superhighway to that third stage of Bedlam. And they are Sandchigger, Seja, and Terry Robinson. If you'd like to support our show so that we can keep tossing bits of glamour into the world, please consider visiting our Patreon at www.patreon.com/changelingthepodcast. Cheers, and keep on dreaming.